Now to make our orange wine, we will be needing the following. We have 1 gallon of 100% orange juice from concentrate with no preservatives. We'll need 2 cups of sugar. We'll need 1/4 teaspoon of Red Star Premier Blanc wine yeast. And the reason why I'm using this version of wine yeast is because I want the slightly higher ABV potential that this offers, something in the neighborhood of 18%. I'm shooting for 13, but if things go wrong, I can get up to 18. Now, if you don't have Red Star wine yeast, or if you're not using Lavin, EC118 equivalent, you can always use bread yeast. Now we're going to be using 1/4 teaspoon of bread yeast anyway, and the reason why we need the bread yeast is because it's going to act as a yeast nutrient for our other yeast. Turns out that live yeast likes to feed off dead yeast. It's a nutrient. We'll need 1 black tea bag, and the reason for the tea bag is that it's going to act as our tannin substitute, give the wine a little bit of astringency. Initially, it might be helpful if we had a funnel. We are going to need 2 1 gallon, or in this case, 4-liter carboys. The first one is to do primary fermentation in, and then as sediment builds up, we transfer it into the second carboy for the longer secondary fermentation. Now you can do fermentation, primary fermentation, in the original jug that the juice came in. So if you only have got 1 carboy, don't consider that to be a limiting factor. You are going to need an airlock with bung that's large enough to fit into the openings of either your carboys or your jug. This one is also optional, but very helpful if you have a hydrometer. Helps you determine how much alcohol you've made in your wine. Also, if there are any problems like stuck fermentations that might occur. Another very helpful accessory, which is also optional, is a racking cane. That's going to help us transfer our wine or must from one carboy to the other, reducing the amount of exposure to air in the process. And of course, as always, least but certainly not last, we need a food grade sanitizer, whether it's One Step or Star San or some other appropriate equivalent, to make sure all of our equipment has been properly cleaned and sanitized. Because if there's anything that's going to go wrong, not having cleaned and sanitized equipment is going to be the main factor. And that is what I'm going to be using to make this wine. All right, to get things started, we want to take 1/4 teaspoon of our bread yeast, put that in a small cup. Take our black tea bag, as we'll drop that in too, and take our orange juice and pour off about 1/4 cup or so. Don't need to be precise. Now what we need to do now in order to kill off our bread yeast so that it will act as a yeast nutrient is that we need to heat this up past the 165 threshold that the yeast needs to begin to die off. So we're going to go ahead and drop this in the microwave for about, 40 seconds to a minute, and that should be enough. If you don't have a microwave, just bring it on the stove, put it in a pot on the stove, and heat it till it starts to simmer. So let's get that done. Okay, now that our yeast is hot enough, see if I can get some whiffs of steam coming up across the camera. Doubtful, but at least I tried. Took about 50 seconds in a 1200 watt microwave. So we're going to let that come down to room temperature, but in the meantime, we're going to go ahead to the next step. All right, we're going to go ahead and pour in our 2 cups of sugar. This is where the funnel begins to show its worth. Following that, we're going to go ahead and add in our yeast nutrient substitute / tannin substitute. Following that, we want to go ahead and start adding in our orange juice. Getting as much of it in the bottle as possible. I'm going to stop it about there, simply because we still have all of that undissolved sugar in there. And I want to go ahead and get that fully dissolved. Making sure our cap is on tight. Go ahead and begin the process of shaking this bad boy up. And it's a whole lot easier shaking up half a carboy than it is a full one. All right, that was a good 3 minutes of shaking there. Nice little workout. We can now go ahead and add in the rest for orange juice. I'm going to fill it about yay high, because you never can tell once it starts fermenting how much foam is actually going to work its way up the top. Put my cap on for a second. Clean this up and move on to the next step. Now I've taken the opportunity to take a hydrometer reading at this point, and it looks like we're coming in at 1.072, a bit lower than I would normally like it, of 1.080, but this will do. Now, so far, all we've made is just sweetened orange juice. In order to start the process of turning our orange juice into wine, we need to add our yeast. 1/4 teaspoon. Again, if this is wine yeast. If you don't have it, bread yeast, the still living kind, is all that you really need. So just go ahead and get that in there. Give it a little swirl. And for the moment, put our cap back on. Okay, I've taken the opportunity of filling in our airlock up to the levels with a little bit of food grade sanitizer, in which case this time I'm using a little bit of Star San. And we're going to go ahead and remove our cap and plug in our airlock. Now I should point out that this particular carboy is a recycled wine jug, and this is a number 6 bung that fits in this opening for a 1-gallon container. Airlocks, of course, you can get for about $1.50 a piece off Amazon, and I do have links for the bungs and the airlocks in my comment section below the video. Now then, it's time to label our creation. We are making an orange wine. And we started it on this date, and our starting gravity was 1.072. We need this number so that at the end of the process we can determine what our final alcohol by volume, ABV, was for this wine. Now then, we're just going to put our wine away someplace at a relatively dark, cool location and let it start its fermentation process. After about 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to begin seeing sediment forming up along the bottom of your carboy. Actually, you'll start seeing that in a couple of days. But usually what I do is that once the sediment layer reaches about anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch, that's when I'll begin the process of racking it or transferring it into another carboy to get it off of that dead yeast layer, which is dead yeast, yeast, same thing, so that it doesn't help or start to develop any off flavors. Also helps in the process of beginning to clarify your wine. Now you'll be doing that several times over the next several months. One thing I can say is that when you are transferring it from one carboy to another, do not use a funnel, okay? Because you don't want to start introducing oxygen, which the yeast does need at the beginning to help grow and multiply. But after the first 5 days or so, more oxygen is not a good thing. That's the thing you want to try and avoid. So when you do rack it into that second carboy, if you have a 1-gallon container, great, you're all set. But if it's another 4-gallon or 4-liter carboy, then you might want to break out some more orange juice and bring this level up close to the top so that you don't have as much oxygen, potential oxygen in your carboy to help oxidize, that might oxidize or spoil your wine. Now, of course, I said this is a several month process. I mean, it's your taste bud, you can drink it whenever. However, the longer you wait, the better it will be. I'm just saying. Furthermore, it will also start to clear up. So, that having been said, that's my take on making a rather simplified orange wine. I have made it before using fresh orange juice in one of my very early videos. I no longer make wine in that way anymore, but if you like what you see here, click on that subscribe and notify button. Better yet, become a member. Better yet, become a Patreon. Help support this channel so I can buy more ingredients to make more wine. So until the next video, I'll see you.